I'm Gregg Jarrett for FoxNews.com. Growing problems surrounding a massive sinkhole in the state of Florida, going much deeper and potentially impacting the health of millions of Americans. The sinkhole opened up below a phosphate strip mine and is leaking more than 200 million gallons of radioactive wastewater into the Florida aquifer, one of the state's main sources of drinking water. News first broke about the leak September 15th on a Thursday, but news reports indicate that Mosaic, the owner of the mine, and state officials have known about the problem for 3 weeks but failed to notify the public. A worker apparently found out about the sinkhole on August 27th, about 3 weeks and tons of water usage for millions of people. But this extends further than just the Sunshine State. In fact, the Florida aquifer underlies all of Florida and extends into southern Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. Let's now bring in Jaclyn Lopez, the Florida director of the Center for Biological Diversity. So, Ms. Lopez, thanks for being with us. This sounds dangerous, radioactive waste that is in close proximity to a major aquifer. Are lives potentially at risk?
So we're not sure how far the contamination has gone. Mosaic is checking the wells around the area and has said that no contamination has extended beyond the property site. But as you stated, the sinkhole sits on top of the Floridan aquifer and has opened up inside of a phosphogypsum stack. And a phosphogypsum stack is a stack that contains millions of tons of radioactive waste that is the byproduct from phosphate mining. So we're talking about uranium and radium,
right,
and all other kinds of chemicals like sulfuric acid that have opened up, that are in this stack, and now that the sinkhole has opened up and it's going directly into the Florida aquifer.
Yeah, we're showing a picture of it. Other than monitoring the water in and around that aquifer, what steps are being taken to close this up to make sure that there is no leakage?
That's a great question, and we're not really sure. The last time this happened at this plant, it took them about a year to fix the hole. Mosaic has come out with an estimate that for this particular sinkhole, it will cost them between $20 and $50 million, but there's no timeline that's been published for how soon they'll be able to get that hole plugged.
Now, the State Department of Environmental Protection in Florida, their spokesperson issued a statement that said, quote, "To date, there's no evidence of off-site movement or threat to off-site groundwater supplies. The processed water is being successfully contained." Are you convinced?
Our concern is that it took 3 weeks for this information to come to light. So it's difficult for us to trust resources that did not share the information with neighbors and residents of Florida for 3 whole weeks. And it took news and the media breaking the story before we were notified. And it's that same resource that's telling us that our water is safe. So you can understand that the neighbors and folks in the area may not trust that resource.
But for the media, perhaps this wouldn't have been known to the public. Are you worried that this company, Mosaic, and maybe some at the Department of Environmental Protection were trying to cover this up and hide it?
Who knows why they didn't share this information? And Mosaic has come out and said it regrets not sharing it sooner. Perhaps that's only because they got caught. We do know that sinkholes happen all the time in Florida, and certainly this is not the first sinkhole to happen inside of a phosphate in one of these phosphogypsum mines. So there is this concern that the public is in the dark with respect to what's happening on these radioactive hazardous waste sites.
Yeah. Fundamentally, is it simply too dangerous to have a big fertilizer plant with dangerous runoff and byproducts, radioactive waste, anywhere near a public aquifer?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge concern. There's over 1 billion tons of this radioactive phosphogypsum stacked in 25 different stacks all throughout Florida, and many of them are near very urban areas.
Right.
And the thing is, there's no long-term plan for what's going to happen to these stacks. They are there almost in perpetuity. The EPA just requires that they be maintained in these stacks so that these chemicals don't become environmental health concerns. But, you know, when Mosaic goes away, as all companies do come and go, there is no long-term solution for what's going to be done with them, and certainly the communities that live adjacent to them. If I lived there, I would be concerned.
You know, look, the Environmental Protection Agency, both state and federal, have a track record of being very aggressive in trying to eliminate these kinds of hazards. And yet, is there any effort here to shut it down? The government trying to shut this company down?
No, and in fact, there are several permits that are pending to expand these phosphate mining operations currently before the Army Corps of Engineers, which authorizes some of the permitting. About 52,000 acres of additional phosphate mining is slated to occur, and all of that mining will produce this radioactive phosphogypsum byproduct, which will have to be stored somewhere, very likely in one of these stacks already in Florida, sitting on top of the Floridan aquifer.
All right, Jaclyn Lopez, the Florida Director for the Center for Biological Diversity, thank you for being with us and trying to explain it. Stick with us at foxnews.com for continuing coverage of this story.